Imagine looking up into the clouds and seeing what looks like a flying armchair or a literal inflatable rubber boat soaring right over your head. Have you ever wondered how some of the most ridiculous, makeshift-looking contraptions actually manage to defy gravity? Today we are exposing 10 bizarre flying machines, some built in backyards, others designed with downright crazy engineering. They look like absolute amateur hour, but are fully functioning aircraft. Stay with me until the very end, because the last one isn't just a plane, it is a creature that escaped the highway and took to the skies. Now, if you love bizarre machines and incredible engineering, hit that subscribe button for more unbelievable machines like these. Let's fire them up. Starting off our list at number 10 is a machine that proves aerodynamics are just a suggestion. The Evans VP-1 Volksplane, designed in the late 1960s by a former aeronautical engineer named William Evans. This aircraft was meant to be the ultimate affordable backyard build. Instead of using a high-dollar aviation engine, Evans went to the junkyard. He pulled a standard Volkswagen Beetle flat-4 engine, bolting a propeller directly to the crankshaft. It produces just 40 horsepower, making it one of the weakest engines to ever power an airplane. If you told a designer to create the least aerodynamic, blockiest flying brick possible, they would probably hand you the blueprints to a Volksplane. It is completely open cockpit and built almost entirely out of marine-grade plywood and spruce, meaning it feels more like a flying lumberyard than an aircraft. Builders primarily use these for low and slow recreational flying around local airfields. When you sit exposed to the wind in this wooden box, cruising at a blistering 75 miles per hour feels terrifyingly fast, giving pilots the ultimate raw flying experience. The craziest part about the Volksplane is that Evans designed it so simply that anyone with basic woodworking tools could build it in a standard single-car garage. People literally glued these together in their living rooms before towing them to the airstrip. It is a true testament to the idea that if you have enough thrust and a decent wing, you can make a wooden brick fly. However, if strapping a Volkswagen car engine to a wooden box sounds sketchy, wait until you see what people built when they had absolutely nothing. Coming in at number 9 is the legendary Pete and Pole Air Camper, an aircraft born out of pure desperation and ingenuity. Picture this. It is 1932. The Great Depression has crippled America, and nobody can afford expensive aviation parts. A self-taught mechanic named Bernard Pete and Pole decided to build his own plane out of stuff found at the local hardware store. For power, he literally took a 40-horsepower liquid-cooled 4-cylinder engine right out of a Ford Model A automobile and retrofitted it to turn a wooden propeller up in the sky. The Air Camper is a 2-seat parasol monoplane built out of spruce and covered in lightweight fabric. Visually, it looks like a fragile wooden crate suspended under a massive wing with a heavy car radiator exposed right in front of the pilot's face. This heavy cast-iron tractor-like engine had absolutely no business being in an airplane, but farmers and backyard mechanics used it specifically because it was cheap, reliable, and easily repairable. Flying a Pete and Pole meant you could fix your airplane with the exact same wrench you used on your tractor. The ultimate joke among mechanics is that the greatest car Henry Ford ever built ended up taking to the skies thanks to a woodworker from Minnesota. Flying this machine is pure, unfiltered mechanical joy. You can hear every valve ticking and watch the exposed radiator boiling water right in front of you. Now, if you think that putting a heavy cast-iron car engine into a wooden plane makes for a terrifyingly heavy aircraft, our number 8 spot takes backyard engineering into the exact opposite direction with a terrifyingly lightweight metal skeleton. Our number 8 spot is the Milholland Legal Eagle, and it takes the concept of backyard engineering to an obsessive bare-bones extreme. Leonard Milholland wanted to build an aircraft that bypassed all heavy government regulations by fitting into the strict experimental ultralight category. To do that legally, the entire aircraft had to weigh less than 254 pounds empty. To achieve this, builders use a half VW engine, They literally take a Volkswagen flat 4 engine, cut the engine block completely in half with a hacksaw, and run it as a 30-horsepower two-cylinder. The Legal Eagle is nothing more than a welded chromoly steel tube frame covered in lightweight fabric, looking like a fragile metal skeleton with wings. There is no cockpit, there are no doors, and there is not even a solid floorboard beneath your boots. It is used strictly for fair weather, low-altitude cruising over open farmland. You are essentially strapping your body directly to an open metal frame. You sit completely exposed to the elements, looking right past your dangling boots at the spinning earth 1,000 feet below your seat. Building a Legal Eagle requires a builder to obsess over every single ounce. Guys will actually drill holes in their wrenches and bolts just to save a fraction of a pound to meet the strict legal weight limit. It is an absolute masterpiece of mechanical subtraction and raw bravery. You have to trust your own welding skills with your life. But if sitting on a bare metal frame high in the sky sounds insane, our number 7 spot shrinks the whole flying concept down to a terrifyingly small and cramped scale. Shrinking things down to the extreme, we have the Luciole MC-30 at number 7. Designed by French aeronautical genius Michel Colombin, this microplane was engineered to be the absolute smallest, most efficient twin-cylinder aircraft possible. The entire wingspan is just 23 feet, and the plane weighs a hilarious 214 pounds empty. But the power plant is what makes it truly bizarre. Power comes from a V-twin Briggs & Stratton Vanguard commercial engine. The exact same industrial motor used in heavy-duty riding lawnmowers and portable generators, tuned to just 25 horsepower. Visually, the Luciole looks exactly like a scale model you would buy at a hobby shop, but it is built to carry a full-grown adult pilot. The cockpit is so impossibly tight and narrow that you do not climb into this aircraft. You basically put it on like a tight pair of jeans. Despite looking like a fragile plastic toy, it is highly aerodynamic and used by private pilots for cross-country flights. Capable of hitting over 120 miles per hour on less than 2 gallons of fuel per hour. The sheer audacity of taking a heavy-duty lawnmower engine, bolting it to a tiny composite shell and outrunning highway traffic in the sky is mind-blowing. Pilots who fly the Luciole say that every minor gust of wind feels like a massive roller coaster drop because the aircraft is so incredibly light. It is literally a lawnmower that conquered the clouds. However, if feeling cramped inside a tiny enclosed cockpit gives you intense claustrophobia, our number 6 spot completely rips away the walls to give you an open-air thrill ride like no other. Taking the number 6 spot is the Ranz 18 Stinger II, an aircraft that completely redefines the meaning of open-air flying. Introduced in the 1990s, it was designed for pilots who wanted maximum visibility and the rawest connection to the wind. Power comes from a lightweight Rotax 2-stroke engine, pushing out about 50 horsepower. However, it utilizes a pusher propeller design, meaning the screaming 2-stroke engine and the spinning propeller sit directly behind your head, blasting exhaust and deafening noise backward while pushing the entire lightweight frame forward through the air. Imagine taking a high-speed racing tricycle, attaching long glider wings to the top, and bolting a powerful engine to the rear axle. That is exactly what the Stinger II looks like. There is absolutely no fuselage enclosing you. You are strapped into a bucket seat sitting completely ahead of the wing, with nothing between you and the open sky but a tiny polycarbonate windshield. Used primarily for aerial photography and sightseeing, it feels less like flying an airplane and much more like riding a flying motorcycle straight off a high cliff. The visibility in a Stinger II is absolute, but so is the terrifying exposure. Pilots talk about the sheer adrenaline rush of coming in for a landing, watching the runway asphalt rush up right between their feet with nothing to protect them. One wrong move and you are eating bugs at 70 miles per hour. Now, before we move into the top 5 most extreme flying machines, if you respect real mechanical grit, hit that like button and subscribe to help the algorithm show this video to more hardcore gearheads like you. Stepping up the insanity at number 5, we have the undisputed king of death-defying backyard builds, the Benson B-8 gyrocopter, invented by Igor Benson in the 1950s. This machine was designed to bring rotorcraft flying to the working-class man. Unlike a helicopter, a gyrocopter does not power its top main rotor directly. Instead, a screaming McCulloch target drone engine bolted to the back pushes the aircraft forward, and the wind passing upward through the top blades causes them to spin and create lift. A terrifyingly brilliant aerodynamic phenomenon known as auto-rotation. Visually, the Benson B-8 looks exactly like what it is: a cheap lawn chair strapped to an aluminum pole with a massive unpowered rotor blade spinning above your head. There is no cabin, no walls, and zero protection. Everyday guys bought blueprints from the back pages of popular mechanics magazines and built these flying lawn chairs in their residential garages. Used mostly for extreme weekend thrill-seeking, these open-air gyrocopters require the pilot to rely entirely on constant forward momentum to stay airborne. If you lose your forward speed, you fall like a stone. Riding in a Benson takes serious guts, because you are trusting your life to a homemade metal mast and the wind. Benson himself was a mad genius who routinely tested his initial prototypes by having his friends tow him behind a speeding car down a dirt road until he lifted off. It is a masterpiece of dangerous mid-century engineering. But what if you did not just want an unpowered rotor? What if you wanted to build a complex, fully powered helicopter right in your driveway? Our number 4 spot delivers exactly that. Coming in at number 4 is the Rotorway Scorpion II, a machine born from the insane dream of building a personal helicopter in a suburban garage. In the 1970s, Rotorway sold this incredible machine as a mail-order kit. You would receive heavy crates of metal tubing and a massive water-cooled engine, and it was entirely up to you to weld and assemble your own chopper. It was eventually powered by Rotorway's custom-built massive 4-cycle liquid-cooled engine, putting out an impressive 133 horsepower to turn a complex main rotor. Building a fixed-wing plane is hard enough, but a helicopter requires absolute mechanical obsession. Visually, the Scorpion II looks like a stripped-down bare metal skeleton of a military scout chopper, with an exposed engine block and a bulbous fiberglass nose shield. It was designed for private citizens who wanted the ultimate point-to-point utility vehicle without paying millions for a factory helicopter. You had to fabricate the steel frame yourself, perfectly align the sensitive tail rotor belt, and carefully balance the heavy main rotor blades using nothing but standard garage hand tools. The level of danger here is off the charts. Seeing a home-built Scorpion hovering above a concrete driveway is a testament to the fact that gearheads will stop at nothing to conquer complex engineering. Even if it means risking their lives on a homemade transmission, if a single welded bolt failed in flight, it was game over. Now, if building a garage helicopter proves the madness of modern mechanics, our number 3 spot takes us back in time to a bizarre, massive mechanical bird that actually fought in a world war. At number 3, we take a step back into history with a machine that looks so weird it feels like it should not exist. The Ettrick Taube, designed in 1910 by Ignaz Ettrick. This was built long before modern aerodynamics were fully understood. Pioneers looked directly at nature for inspiration, shaping this massive aircraft exactly like a flying Xanonia seed pod. Instead of using modern hinged flaps or ailerons, the pilot had to physically warp and bend the entire wooden wing structure, using a complex system of heavy cables to turn the plane. To the modern eye, the Taube, which translates to dove in German, looks completely amateurish. It resembles a giant, bizarre kite made of stretched canvas, bamboo, and steel tubing, featuring sweeping bird-like wings and a fan-shaped tail. Despite its makeshift appearance, it was incredibly stable in the air. In fact, it was so successful that it served as the first mass-produced military aircraft for Germany and Austria right before World War I. It was utilized as a deadly reconnaissance tool and an early bomber, dropping small munitions by hand over enemy lines. The Taub proves that sometimes the craziest-looking designs are actually the most effective, because the wings were completely translucent canvas. Early enemy soldiers on the ground often could not even spot the aircraft against a cloudy sky, making it a terrifyingly stealthy mechanical bird. It is a brilliant piece of historical engineering that defies all modern logic. But if an aircraft shaped like a giant plant seed bends the strict rules of aviation, our number 2 spot takes a heavy marine vehicle and shatters those rules completely. Shattering the rules entirely at number 2 is the FIB, or the Flying Inflatable Boat. Developed by Polaris Motor in Italy, this machine answers a question absolutely nobody was asking. Someone looked at a heavy-duty Zodiac rubber boat, the exact kind used by Coast Guards for deep-sea rescues, and decided it needed to fly. They attached a massive reinforced hang glider wing to a metal mast above the boat and bolted a screaming 64-horsepower 2-stroke Rotax engine with a giant propeller directly to the rear transom of the heavy rubber hull. It is an absolutely absurd-looking chimera. It literally looks like a rescue raft that got tangled up in a hang glider during a severe storm. But the crazy part is how flawlessly it works in the real world, used heavily for coastal tourism and amphibious exploration. You can start the roaring engine on the water, throttle up across the waves, and within a few hundred feet that heavy rubber hull lifts directly into the sky. You are soaring thousands of feet in the air, sitting inside a literal inflatable boat. It is loud, it is windswept, and it is easily one of the most creatively unhinged pieces of recreational engineering on the planet. Imagine the shock of people on luxury yachts, watching a rubber dinghy take off and fly right over their masts. It proves that with enough thrust, you can make a boat fly. Now, if a flying rubber boat seems wild, our number 1 spot is a machine that breaks every rule of the road and the sky, fulfilling the ultimate backyard engineering dream. Taking our number 1 spot is the ultimate mechanical mutant, the Taylor Aerocar. Back in 1949, a brilliant mad scientist of an engineer named Molt Taylor wanted to solve the annoying problem of getting from the airport into the city. His solution was to build a compact car that actually tows its own wings behind it on a trailer. Under the hood sits a powerful 143-horsepower Lycoming aviation engine. A brilliant custom transmission seamlessly switches power, from driving the rear wheels on the road to spinning a rear-mounted propeller in the air. It looks incredibly bizarre, like a chopped-up Volkswagen bug, forcefully mashed into a Cessna airplane. When you arrive at the runway, you simply unhitch the trailer, bolt the long wings and the tail section directly onto the back of the tiny car, connect the rear propeller, and in 5 minutes, your daily driver transforms into a fully functioning airplane. Designed for wealthy businessmen who wanted the ultimate commuting machine, the Aerocar could hit 60 miles per hour on the highway and over 100 miles per hour up in the clouds. But here is the massive plot twist I promised you at the start. Despite looking like a crazy garage experiment, the Taylor Aerocar was a genuine triumph. It is the only machine on this entire list that was officially evaluated, tested, and granted full civilian flight certification by the United States Federal Aviation Administration. The government actually approved this flying car. Unfortunately, it was too expensive to catch on, but it remains the absolute king of insane, rule-breaking mechanical designs, proving that sometimes the craziest ideas actually work perfectly. These 10 machines represent the absolute limit of mechanical creativity. They show the raw human drive to conquer the skies, using whatever materials, chopped-up engines, and crazy ideas they could find. Now I want to hear from you. Which one of these 10 did you find the absolute strangest? Would you have the guts to strap yourself into the Benson flying lawn chair? And is there a bizarre makeshift aircraft I completely missed? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Next week, we are looking at 5 massive tractors that were literally built for war. You will not want to miss it. Have you ever imagined stepping outside, looking up, and seeing what appears to be a flying bathtub soaring above your neighborhood? In the world of amateur-built aircraft and experimental home-built aviation, the line between unconventional engineering and pure imagination can be incredibly thin. These strange flying machines were created in garages, workshops, and backyards by independent builders. They refuse to accept ordinary aircraft design. Some are tiny, some look almost impossible to control. Yet every aircraft on this list actually left the ground. That is a fact. Today we are counting down 10 amateur-built aircraft you won't believe actually flew. Stay with us until the very end, because the number one machine is so small and unusual that it looks more like an escaped model aircraft than a real flying machine. Starting our list at number 10 is the Colomban Cri-Cri, a French engineering marvel. It proves that you do not need a massive hangar to build a fully functional twin-engine aircraft. Designed in the early 1970s by aeronautical engineer Michel Colomban, this microplane was born from a pure desire. He wanted to make twin-engine flight accessible and affordable for the everyday garage mechanic. In an era where aviation was becoming increasingly complex and expensive, Colomban drafted a brilliant set of blueprints. He created a machine that perfectly captured the experimental home-built movement. Now, do not let its miniature size fool you. The engineering beneath the aluminum skin of the Cri-Cri is fiercely impressive. Indeed it is. The aircraft is powered by two JPX Pul 212 engines. Each produces 15 horsepower, mounted on pylons right in front of the pilot. To put its size into perspective, the wingspan is just under 16 feet. If you stood it on its nose, it would be shorter than a standard Ford F-150. Weighing a mere 170 pounds empty, its meticulous aerodynamic design easily withstands extreme G-forces. In the real world, the Cri-Cri is not just a novelty, it is a legendary performer at air shows like Oshkosh AirVenture. There, the deafening buzz of its tiny twin engines always draws a massive crowd. One of the most famous anecdotes involves a heavily modified version of the Cri-Cri. It was successfully launched from atop a much larger aircraft in mid-air. This is absolutely wild. It is a true testament to backyard engineering. But if you think strapping two small engines to a tiny aluminum box is wild, wait until you see our next aircraft. Coming in at number 9 is the Rutan Quickie Q1, a machine that completely defied traditional aerodynamic conventions. It hit the home-built market in 1978, created by the legendary Burt Rutan, the same mastermind behind the first privately funded spacecraft. The Quickie was an exercise in radical efficiency and out-of-the-box thinking. Rutan wanted to build a single-seat composite aircraft, one that a hobbyist could put together in their garage and fly for pennies on the dollar. He changed the entire kit plane landscape with his visionary geometry. The mechanical brilliance of the Quickie lies in its highly unconventional structure and, of course, its impressive power-to-weight ratio. It was powered by a modest 18-horsepower Onan twin-cylinder industrial engine. The exact same heavy-duty power plant you might find in a vintage garden tractor. This is surprising, yet because of its incredibly aerodynamic fiberglass construction, that tiny engine could propel the Quickie to a cruising speed of 120 miles per hour. The forward wing sat low to act as the main landing gear support. This created a distinct, sleek silhouette without a traditional tail. For the backyard engineer, the Quickie offered an unparalleled cost-to-performance ratio, making it a beloved project for those who appreciated complex composite work. A famous piece of EAA lore highlights dedicated builders. They would spend hundreds of hours carefully sanding the fiberglass curves to absolute perfection. Why? Because the incredible efficiency depended entirely on smooth airflow. It represents an era where slide rules triumphed over brute horsepower. The Quickie relied on pure aerodynamic brilliance, but our next machine throws traditional wings straight into the trash in favor of spinning blades. Number 8 is the legendary Ken Wallace gyrocopter, specifically the iconic WA-116 model. This machine brought the eccentric world of autogyros to the global stage. Wing Commander Ken Wallace, a British aviation pioneer and former bomber pilot, did not invent the gyrocopter, but he perfected it in his workshop during the 1960s. Wallace saw the autogyro not as a toy. It was a highly practical, incredibly agile observation platform. It could fly low, slow, and safely in conditions that would immediately stall a conventional fixed-wing aircraft. The WA-116 was a masterclass in stripped-down mechanical efficiency. It was built around a custom-tuned 72-horsepower McCulloch four-cylinder engine. Originally, this was designed for military target drones. Unlike a helicopter, the massive overhead rotor is not directly powered by the engine in flight. Instead, the rear pusher propeller drives the machine forward, and the wind passing through the overhead blades causes them to auto-rotate, creating essential lift. It looks incredibly vulnerable, just a metal tube frame and an exposed pilot seat. But this mechanical simplicity makes it completely immune to sudden stalls. That is brilliant. The most famous real-world application of Wallace's WA-116 was its starring role in the 1967 James Bond film, You Only Live Twice. There it was heavily armed with prop rockets. What a spectacle. Beyond Hollywood, Wallace used his fleet of gyrocopters for serious aerial surveying and setting numerous world records. He aggressively flew his creations well into his 90s. His life's work proved one thing, that a properly engineered rotorcraft built in a home garage could be spectacularly reliable. A gyrocopter takes pilot precision, but what if you just tape some foam together with electric motors? At number 7, we dive into the modern era of extreme DIY. This is the homemade electric airplane Mk4, built by YouTube fabricator Peter Shripal. Unlike the meticulously drafted blueprints of the past, this twin-motor aircraft represents the raw energy of modern internet engineering. It was built primarily from insulation foam board, aluminum tubing, and heavy-duty tape. That is insane. Shripal wanted to prove that manned electric flight did not require millions of dollars in corporate research. It just required a terrifying willingness to act as your own test pilot. The specifications showcase an alarming cost-to-danger ratio, powered by two massive brushless electric motors running on high-capacity lithium polymer batteries. The thrust output is aggressively instantaneous, with zero lag. Absolutely. Visually, it looks exactly like an oversized RC plane, scaled up to fit a human, featuring a completely open cockpit and landing gear made from modified bicycle wheels. Lacking basic aviation fail-safes entirely, it relies entirely on the structural integrity of hardware store foam boards glued together in a suburban workshop. Despite its incredibly crude appearance, the Mk4 successfully carried a human being into the sky and landed safely. This is spectacular. It sparked a massive conversation about the democratization of ultra-cheap electric aviation. This is a fantastic reminder. True engineering audacity does not always require a degree. It just requires a garage and a fearless vision. Foam board and duct tape are one way to defy gravity, but if you want to blur the line between a maritime vessel and an aircraft, our next ground effect monster takes it to a whole new level. Number 6 is the UH-19XRW Hoverwing, a bizarre and brilliant hybrid machine. It exists in a fascinating legal gray area between maritime law and FAA regulations. Developed by Universal Hovercraft, a company famous for high-performance amphibious vehicles. The Hoverwing was designed for adrenaline junkies who wanted the thrill of flight without leaving the ground effect zone. By bolting removable wings onto a modified hovercraft hull, engineers created a unique vehicle. It uses a cushion of air to glide smoothly a few feet above the water. Mechanically, the Hoverwing relies on raw brute force, typically utilizing a heavy-duty automotive engine pushing over 100 horsepower. That is impressive. This engine drives a massive rear thrust propeller, while a secondary lift fan forces air under the skirt. Hitting 45 miles per hour, aerodynamic lift takes over, lifting the hull out of the water for a high-speed cruise. However, it is an aerodynamic widowmaker if mishandled. Without a traditional tail rudder for high-altitude stabilization, a strong crosswind can easily flip the craft. Because it never technically flies out of ground effect, it is legally classified as a boat, meaning you do not need a pilot's license to operate one. Enthusiasts use them to blast across frozen lakes and navigate shallow marshlands, places where no traditional boat or plane could survive. Very handy. Gliding 2 feet over the water is a tremendous thrill for mechanics who refuse to be limited by terrain. But if you want to go straight up using an engine setup that defies every rule, our next rotorcraft is pure audacity. Dropping in at number 5 is the Gen H4, a mechanical marvel from Japan. It holds the Guinness World Record as the world's smallest coaxial helicopter. Designed by engineering visionary Genai Yanagisawa, the concept was to create a personal vertical takeoff aircraft that you could fold up and wheel into your living room. How convenient. Yanagisawa stripped away the complex swash plates of standard helicopters, relying instead on 2 massive counter-rotating blades to provide both lift and rotational stability, fulfilling the 1950s promise of a personal flying backpack. The technical specifications of the Gen H4 are absolutely wild. Instead of one large engine, this rig is powered by 4 independent GEN 125 two-stroke engines, custom-built by Yanagisawa himself, producing a combined 40 horsepower. An impressive figure. This 4-engine redundancy is a critical safety feature, ensuring a controlled descent if a motor fails. The pilot simply straps into a harness hanging beneath the screaming transmission, using a motorcycle-style handlebar to shift their weight and steer, completely exposed to the deafening roar of the overhead blades. Operating under FAA. Part 1. 03 regulations, the Gen H4 qualifies as an ultralight aircraft, playing a thrilling game of cat and mouse with traditional aviation rules. While its terrifyingly steep learning curve kept it from mass production, it remains a highly respected proof of concept in the experimental aviation community. It marries Japanese mechanical precision to pure risk, assuredly. Riding a spinning chair takes massive guts, but modern aerospace engineers have taken that vertical lift concept and built a flying carriage that actively fights the laws of gravity. Number 4 introduces us to the Aeronext Flying Gondola, a sophisticated Japanese electric vertical takeoff prototype that aims to redefine passenger comfort. Unlike the grease and metal builds of the past, this machine was constructed by high-tech engineers, focusing entirely on a revolutionary concept called 4D gravity. Their goal was to solve the nauseating tilting and banking that occurs every time a drone moves forward. The flying gondola separates the passenger cabin from the flight mechanics, allowing the rotors to maneuver while keeping the cabin perfectly level. The mechanics of this machine represent a massive leap in multi-rotor technology, utilizing an array of powerful electric motors mounted on an independent articulating frame. When the drone accelerates, the 4D gravity system uses a complex center of gravity control mechanism to isolate the passenger pod, ensuring maximum stability during a high-speed bank. That is amazing. Visually, it looks like a sleek ski lift cabin suspended inside a giant, aggressive industrial drone. However, aviation veterans note its extreme reliance on software. Any sensor failure could compromise the pod's mechanical stability. Currently being rigorously tested as the future of urban air mobility, the flying gondola aims to act as an aerial taxi in dense cities, places where traditional helicopters are too loud and dangerous, very practical. It is a fascinating glimpse into a future where flying across town is as smooth as riding an elevator, representing the absolute bleeding edge of aerodynamic software engineering. High-tech stabilization is certainly impressive, but what happens if you strip away the carriage, the safety systems, and strap your work boots straight to a drone? Roaring in at number 3 is the Dragonair Airboard, a terrifyingly powerful multicopter designed by Mariah Kane for the Boeing-sponsored Go Fly competition. The mandate was to build a personal flying device that was safe, compact, and capable of carrying a human for 20 miles. The Dragonair team responded by building what is essentially a high-powered hoverboard. Very bold. It requires the pilot to stand upright, relying entirely on their own balance, physical stamina, and a handheld joystick to control pitch and yaw in midair. The airboard is a beast of electric engineering, featuring an array of heavy-duty brushless motors that generate an incredible amount of downward thrust. Because the pilot is standing directly over the spinning blades, the center of gravity is dangerously high. This forces the onboard flight controller to make thousands of micro-adjustments per second. Unbelievable. The visual is intimidating. The pilot is fully exposed to the elements, wearing a fire-retardant suit and a full-face helmet, as they literally surf through the sky with an off-the-charts cost-to-danger ratio. Despite the inherent dangers, the Dragonair airboard successfully completed multiple manned test flights. Very impressive, proving that the human body can adapt to riding a multi-rotor platform. It quickly captured the attention of military organizations looking for rapid deployment mobility solutions in impassable terrain. It is a true testament to bold engineering and the absolute fearlessness of modern test pilots. Standing on an exposed drone is terrifying enough. But what if you decided to rip a plumbing fixture out of your bathroom and fly it to the store? Taking the number 2 spot is the completely absurd yet fully functional flying bathtub, built by the German engineering daredevils known as the real-life guys. These backyard fabricators are famous for taking ordinary heavy household objects and weaponizing them with excessive horsepower. The concept started as a joke, but escalated into a complex mechanical project requiring serious structural engineering. They wanted to prove that with enough thrust and proper drone flight controllers, aerodynamics did not matter at all. You could literally make a cast-iron tub fly. To lift a heavy bathtub and a human pilot, the team constructed a massive steel frame. It was custom welded and completely surrounded the tub. They bolted on 6 industrial-grade electric drone motors, each swinging a massive carbon fiber propeller, capable of generating hundreds of pounds of thrust. That is crazy. The visual of a man sitting comfortably in a bathtub wearing a helmet while being violently lifted into the air is deeply unsettling. There are absolutely zero fail-safes. If the battery fails, the bathtub instantly becomes a massive falling brick. In a stunt that went incredibly viral, they actually flew this contraption out of a garage, over a field, and successfully landed it outside a local bakery to pick up a sandwich. How hilarious. While it would give any FAA inspector a heart attack. The project perfectly encapsulates the wild, unrestricted spirit of backyard engineering, proving sheer horsepower can overcome terrible aerodynamics. A bathtub drone is absolute backyard insanity, but nothing compares to the sheer, terrifying brilliance of the smallest monoplane ever built. Finally, at number 1, we reach the climax of extreme mechanical audacity. The legendary Stitz SA-2A Skybaby, built in 1952 by aircraft designer Ray Stitz and test pilot Bob Starr. This machine was not created for efficiency. It was built purely to claim the title of the world's smallest monoplane, very determined. Stitz wanted to push the absolute physical limits of how small a manned, combustion-powered aircraft could actually be before the laws of aerodynamics simply refused to cooperate. He drafted blueprints that completely ignored traditional safety margins. The mechanical specifications of the Skybaby are genuinely terrifying. To get this dense airframe off the ground, Stitz crammed a Continental C-85 4-cylinder engine into the nose. To extract an incredible 112 horsepower from this block, he utilized a custom water injection system to cool the cylinders under extreme load. How inventive. The wingspan is a staggeringly short 7 feet 2 inches. Generating very little lift at low speeds, the Skybaby had a terrifying stall speed of 60 miles per hour. Flying the Skybaby was essentially a death-defying stunt. Test pilot Bob Starr noted that the controls were violently sensitive, so much so that a sneeze could cause the plane to snap roll into a dive. Too dangerous. It roared through the sky at air shows in 1952, leaving audiences completely stunned by the deafening noise of that injected Continental engine and the unbelievable speed of such a tiny object. Today, the Sky Baby rests in the Smithsonian, standing as the ultimate monument to the golden age of garage engineering. These machines are not just crazy stunts. They represent the absolute limits of human creativity, raw mechanical power, and the fearless spirit of backyard builders, those who solve problems their own way, truly proud. Which one of these machines did you find the strangest? If you had the guts, which one would you want to see or fly in person? Is there a legendary home-built aircraft that I missed? Let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell, because every week there is a new video exploring the limits of engineering. See you next time. Have you ever imagined opening your garage door, not to find an old project car, but a fully functional flying machine built with your own two hands? Now picture that strange mechanical creation roaring to life and actually taking off into the sky. What kind of builder would trust an aircraft assembled in the same workshop where most people keep their tools and lawnmowers? Today, we are counting down 10 of the craziest homemade and experimental aircraft ever built. Machines with unconventional engines, exposed frames, bizarre designs, and engineering ideas that look almost impossible. Stay with us until the very end, because the number 1 aircraft looks less like a conventional flying machine and more like something that escaped from a science fiction laboratory. Kicking off our list at number 10 is the Wood Sky Pup, a true testament to the extreme lengths of budget backyard engineering. Originating in the United States, this ultralight was designed for the absolute purist, who refuses to use modern aerospace materials. Classified strictly as a Part 103 ultralight, it represents the ultimate low-cost entry into aviation. Builders construct this airframe using basic Douglas fir and aircraft-grade plywood. It is frequently powered by a lightweight 18-horsepower engine. This keeps the empty weight right around 200 pounds and reaches speeds of 50 miles per hour. When you see the Sky Pup in the air, the visual design is striking. It looks exactly like a giant flying balsa wood glider from a hobby shop. The wings are incredibly thick, covered entirely in woven Dacron fabric, and completely lack traditional ailerons. The pilot relies purely on the rudder for roll control. The real-world application of the Sky Pup is strictly recreational. It provides a beautiful weekend flyer for calm morning air. It proves you only need patience, epoxy, and a 2-car garage to experience the absolute miracle of solo flight. The most fascinating anecdote about the Sky Pup is that early blueprints aim for unrealistic weight goals. This led builders to realize they had to carefully manage every single drop of wood glue to stay legally under the FAA 254-pound limit. We give it a sketch factor rating of 4 out of 10, simply because you are flying a hollow wooden crate. It is a beautiful machine for traditionalists, but if you think trusting your life to wood and foam is a bit sketchy, wait until you see what happens when someone bolts aluminum tubes together. Coming in at number 9 is the Affordaplane, the ultimate embodiment of the FAA Part 103 legal loophole, built on a shoestring budget. Designed in the late 1990s by Dave Edwards, this aircraft was created with one singular mission: to get anyone into the air for absolute minimum cash. The entire airframe is constructed from square aluminum tubing. It relies on a 40-horsepower Rotax engine, pushing it to a cruise speed of 55 miles per hour. A first-time garage builder can expect to spend about 500 hours putting this flying lawn chair together. Visually, the Affordaplane is completely stripped down to the bare essentials. It lacks any sleek cowlings or aerodynamic fairings. The pilot sits completely exposed to the wind. They straddle a single aluminum keel tube with the loud 2-stroke engine screaming right behind their head. The real-world application for this aircraft is purely grassroots flying for average blue-collar workers who refuse to let the high costs of general aviation keep them grounded. It is raw, incredibly noisy, and gives you a visceral, unfiltered connection to the sky that modern enclosed airplanes simply cannot provide. The craziest fact about this build is that the aluminum frame is held together not by high-tech welding, but by hundreds of stainless steel pop rivets and standard aviation bolts. Because it relies heavily on rivet integrity, we give the Affordaplane a sketch factor rating of 6 out of 10. It is mechanically sound if built right, but you feel every single bump. However, before modern cheap aluminum kits took over the skies, there was a true pioneer that started the entire ultralight craze, and our next machine is an absolute legend. At number 8, we have the legendary Quicksilver MX. If you were around the aviation scene in the 1980s, this is the machine that defined the ultralight revolution in America. Originally starting its life as a simple weight-shift hang glider, the Quicksilver evolved when crazy backyard engineers decided to bolt small engines onto the back. It is completely optimized for low and slow flight, typically powered by a classic 50-horsepower dual carburetor engine. Weighing roughly 240 pounds empty, it cruises safely at a very gentle 45 miles per hour over open farm fields. Aesthetically, the Quicksilver is instantly recognizable by its pusher propeller configuration and massive fabric-covered wings with a sweeping dihedral angle. The pilot is suspended in an open sling seat beneath the wing, completely immersed in the roaring blast of the engine exhaust. In the real world, the Quicksilver MX was used for everything, from weekend joyrides to low-level crop dusting over small agricultural plots. It represents a golden era when aviation regulations were essentially the Wild West, and anyone with a wrench and a few $1,000s could legally become a pilot. An interesting structural detail is the massive web of stainless steel flying wires holding the entire airframe together. It earns a sketch factor rating of 5 out of 10, mostly because those tension wires require constant checking before every single flight. If one snaps, the wing geometry fails. The MX is a historical icon of the DIY flight movement, but if the Quicksilver is a classic normal-looking ultralight, what happens when an aerospace genius decides to throw traditional aerodynamic proportions completely out the window for maximum efficiency? Number 7 brings us back to the Wing Dingo, a truly bizarre and highly obscure experimental aircraft hailing from the harsh outback of Australia. Designed in the 1980s, this Homebuilt completely rejected standard kit plane norms. It was built for rough bush-style flying on an absolute shoestring budget. Technically, the Wing Dingo is an absolute mechanical oddity. Now, it is powered by a heavily modified Volkswagen Flat 4 automotive engine. This engine puts out around 60 horsepower. Weighing a hefty 600 pounds empty, it struggles to reach cruise speeds of 75 miles per hour. This makes it an incredibly sluggish performer. Visually, the aircraft is jarring and forces everyone to do a massive double take. Look at this. It features a strange twin-boom tail setup and a stubby, almost disproportionately wide fuselage. The wings look slightly too small for the chunky cockpit. Furthermore, the tricycle landing gear is incredibly tall. This gives the aircraft a stance like a mechanical praying mantis. Yes, the real-world application of this strange machine was meant for outback utility. It utilized cheap, readily available automotive parts instead of expensive aviation hardware to bounce over dirt runways and desert scrub. The biggest anecdote surrounding the Wing Dingo is its notorious reputation for heavy wing loading at low speeds. Because builders used whatever steel tubing they had lying around, the aircraft often ended up dangerously tail-heavy. This required a pilot with serious muscle to keep the nose pitched down during a stall. The combination of an unproven aerodynamic profile and heavy car parts earns the Wing Dingo a solid sketch factor rating of 7 out of 10. However, if you think that design looks odd, prepare yourself for a historical machine, a machine whose fatal design flaw was outlawed by an entire nation. Landing at number 6 is the infamous Mignet HM-14, universally known as the Flying Flea. Created in France in the 1930s, this was one of the very first attempts to create a people's airplane that could be built in a standard garage. Mingnet published the blueprints in a book, sparking a massive DIY craze. It was typically powered by a small 30-horsepower motorcycle engine. Weighing roughly 200 pounds, it could put along at 60 miles per hour. The concept was brilliant. Eliminate standard ailerons and control everything using a single steering stick. Visually, the flying flea looked exactly like a tiny aggressive insect, with its short, stubby fuselage and heavily cambered tandem wings. To control altitude, the pilot actually pivoted the entire front wing up and down, changing the aerodynamic profile of the aircraft in real time. The original real-world application was to democratize flight for the European working class. It allowed farmers and shopkeepers to build their own airplanes using basic hand tools and cheap wood. It sounded like an absolute utopian dream for aviation enthusiasts until the fatal crashes began to mount. The flying flea hid a deadly verified aerodynamic secret. If the pilot pushed the nose down too sharply, the airflow between the front and rear wings would overlap, creating a permanent aerodynamic lock. The aircraft would violently dive and flip over, causing a series of fatal accidents. Because of this unrecoverable design error, we give the original design a terrifying sketch factor rating of 9 out of 10. The French government actually stepped in and permanently outlawed it. Speaking of history, what if you want to fly a legendary warbird? Coming in at number 5 is the Airdrome Fokker Dr. I replica. Listen, this is not an ultralight. This is a full-blown experimental amateur-built aircraft. For those who want the adrenaline of World War I dogfighting without paying millions, the Airdrome kit is the ultimate garage project. It replaces the heavy wooden structure of the original fighter with modern aircraft-grade riveted aluminum tubing. Under the cowl, builders install a modern 110-horsepower Rotec radial engine. Weighing around 550 pounds empty, this absolute beast can cruise aggressively at roughly 85 miles per hour through the clouds. The visual appeal of this machine is completely off the charts. It is a massive triplane, meaning it features 3 stacked wings, often painted in the iconic blood-red colors of the infamous Red Baron. When you hear the mechanical roar of that radial engine and see this thing diving out of the sky, it looks like a ghost of history screaming into the modern age. Builders use these replicas primarily for weekend air shows, tactical formation flying, and pure, unfiltered historical joyrides, turning a suburban garage into a literal mechanical time machine. An incredible fact about this build is that despite its intimidating historical reputation, the use of modern materials and proven aluminum engineering actually makes it incredibly safe and structurally sound. It earns a very respectable sketch factor rating of 5 out of 10, primarily because landing a tail dragger with a narrow wheelbase always requires excellent footwork on the rudder pedals. It is a stunning piece of accessible aviation history, but speaking of historical dogfighters, what if you want an aggressive warbird, but you are working with a very strict, tight budget? Number 4 on our list is the Newport 11 replica. Much like the Fokker, this is an experimental kit plane, but with a brilliant engineering twist. It is built at a 78% scale. By shrinking the aircraft slightly, kit manufacturers drastically reduce the structural load requirements, bringing the total build price down to around $10,000. The construction utilizes aluminum tube gusseting secured by heavy-duty blind rivets. It is frequently powered by a 50-horsepower modified Volkswagen automotive engine. Weighing just 280 pounds empty and cruising at 65 miles per hour. Visually, it features the classic biplane configuration with a large upper wing and a much smaller lower wing. This creates an aggressive, nose-high stance on the runway. The open cockpit leaves the pilot exposed to the oil and exhaust of the engine, providing an incredibly visceral World War I flying experience. The real-world application of the 78% Newport is to provide an affordable, lightweight gateway into extreme historical aviation. Because the airframe is so light, that little VW bug engine provides excellent climb rates and surprisingly nimble dogfighting handling characteristics. The most interesting part of this build is the reliance on a heavily modified 1960s car engine to keep you airborne. While VW engines are legendary for their reliability on the ground, using one in an aircraft requires constant maintenance and a certain level of mechanical bravery. We rate its sketch factor at 6 out of 10 for that exact reason. This plane proves that you don't need a military budget to feel like an ace. But what if you want to hover using a completely homemade turbine engine? Brace yourselves for number 3, the helicycle. This is where backyard engineering crosses the line into absolute madness. The helicycle is an experimental single-seat kit helicopter, and it is arguably the most complex machine a civilian can build in their garage. Costing around $40,000, it requires nearly 1,000 hours of precision assembly. You are building a complex elastomeric rotor head and a highly sensitive tail rotor drive system. It weighs an impressive 500 pounds empty and can cruise through the sky at a blistering 95 miles per hour. The absolute craziest part of this build is the power plant. The helicycle is powered by a verified military surplus turbine engine, originally designed to start larger aircraft. Producing a screaming 160 shaft horsepower, this tiny turbine drinks jet fuel and spins at over 60,000 revolutions per minute. Visually, it looks like a high-tech robotic mosquito. The real-world application is pure, unadulterated engineering prestige. When the pilot hits the igniter, the high-pitched turbine whine sounds exactly like a commercial jet, spooling up right in the middle of your suburban driveway. Because helicopters are inherently unstable and require massive mechanical precision to keep from shaking themselves apart, the margin for error during assembly is zero. A single missed cotter pin during the build can be catastrophic in mid-air. For this reason, the helicycle commands a solid sketch factor rating of 8 out of 10. It represents the absolute pinnacle of what a private citizen can achieve with hand tools and dedication. However, if this already seems highly unusual, the next one takes it even further into factory-grade experimental rotorcraft perfection. At number 2 is the Autogyro Calidus. Let's clear the air right now. This is not a sketchy home-built machine assembled with hardware store bolts. This is a state-of-the-art factory-built experimental light sport rotorcraft imported directly from Germany. Costing upwards of $100,000, it is a masterclass in modern engineering. Utilizing full carbon fiber and fiberglass composite construction to achieve incredible strength. It is powered by a 115 horsepower turbocharged Rotax engine. Weighing 600 pounds, it can cruise at 100 miles per hour while burning very little fuel. Visually, the Calidus looks like a sleek enclosed aerodynamic spaceship with a massive free-spinning rotor bolted to the roof. Unlike a helicopter, the overhead rotor is not mechanically connected to the engine during flight. Instead, the rear-mounted engine pushes the aircraft forward, and the wind passing up through the free-spinning blades causes them to turn, creating lift through auto-rotation. In the real world, it is actively used by law enforcement, border patrol, and extreme sports enthusiasts, those who want the ultimate panoramic view while flying safely in very heavy crosswinds. The most incredible engineering fact about the Calidus is its physics-defying safety profile. Because the lift is generated by auto-rotation, the aircraft physically cannot stall. If the engine completely dies in mid-air, the rotors keep spinning from the downward airflow, allowing it to gently parachute to the ground. Thanks to its German engineering and stall-proof physics, it earns a highly safe sketch factor rating of just 3 out of 10. We've seen history and we've seen advanced rotors, but the final machine on our list is purely insane. Taking the number 1 spot is the Phantom X1. If the Part 103 ultralight rules were meant to encourage slow, gentle flight over open fields, the Phantom X1 is the machine that completely abused the rulebook. Built for pure adrenaline, this kit aircraft looks and performs exactly like a lightweight fighter jet. It utilizes an incredibly strong, fully triangulated chromoly steel roll cage paired with aluminum wings. Powered by a screaming 65 horsepower two-stroke engine, it weighs just 250 pounds empty but can easily hit top speeds over 80 miles per hour. Visually, the Phantom X1 features a completely open cockpit, a radically swept-back wing design, and a menacing, predatory stance on the tarmac. When the pilot pushes the throttle forward, it leaps off the ground and accelerates with a terrifying power-to-weight ratio. The real-world application of this aircraft is entirely focused on high-G aerobatic thrills. It is highly responsive, brutally fast, and completely unforgiving of amateur mistakes. It was engineered specifically to pull positive and negative G-forces that would literally tear standard tube and fabric ultralight aircraft to absolute shreds in midair. The most intense aspect of the Phantom X1 is that it strips away all modern safety nets in the pursuit of raw speed and maneuverability. Flying it requires absolute focus and razor-sharp reflexes, as the open-air cockpit exposes you entirely to the brutal forces of the wind. Because it pushes the absolute legal and physical limits of what a lightweight experimental aircraft can do, it claims the ultimate sketch factor rating of 10 out of 10. It is the ultimate flying danger zone built only for the most hardcore pilots. These machines are not just metal, wood, and fabric. They represent raw human ingenuity and the relentless DIY spirit of aviation. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these 10 machines has the most impressive engineering? Would you trust an aircraft held together by pop rivets? Or do you demand welded chromoly tubing? Is there an insane home-built aircraft I missed? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our next video on the craziest custom diesel trucks. Keep your wrenches turning. Have you ever stood by a runway and looked at a machine so strange that you would bet your life savings it could never fly? We are talking about aircraft that completely defy logic. These are machines that look like flying wooden boxes, stripped-down chassis without tails, and contraptions violating every known law of physics. Yet, every single one of them actually took to the skies. Today we are counting down 10 bizarre aircraft that look like amateur garage projects, but hide brilliant engineering secrets. Stay with me until the very end, because our number one spot looks like a mutated creature from a sci-fi movie. If you love mechanical history, hit subscribe and let us get into it. Kicking off our list at number 10 is the ultimate symbol of the grassroots underdog, the Evans VP-1 Volksplane. Designed in 1968 by William Evans in the United States, this machine was built specifically for the everyday guy who wanted to fly on a budget. Evans designed it to be constructed in a standard suburban garage, using marine-grade plywood and simple hand tools. At the heart of this humble bird is a repurposed 40-horsepower Volkswagen Type 1 engine. Weighing a mere 440 pounds empty, it features a 24-foot wingspan. Visually, the Volksplane looks exactly like a flying soapbox derby car. When this thing starts up, the unmistakable, sputtering, air-cooled rattle of that vintage Volkswagen engine fills the air, vibrating right through the open cockpit. The pilot sits completely exposed to the elements, bundled up in a heavy leather jacket and goggles, feeling every gust of wind. It was never meant for cross-country travel or high-speed maneuvers. Instead, it was purely designed for the sheer, unadulterated joy of low and slow weekend flying out over the countryside fields. The most incredible fact about the VP-1 is that Evans never patented the design. He intentionally kept the blueprints cheap, so thousands of amateur builders worldwide could experience flight. Imagine the bravery required to trust your life to a wooden box glued together in your own backyard, powered by an old car engine pulled from a junkyard. It is a testament to the raw optimism of the late 60s. However, if trusting a Volkswagen engine at 2,000 feet seems bold, the vintage contraption coming up next is even crazier. Moving back to the golden age of grassroots aviation, number 9 is the legendary Pete and Pole air camper. Born in 1928 in Cherry Grove, Minnesota, this home-built icon was the brainchild of Bernard Pete and Pole. He was a self-taught mechanic, with a dream to make flying affordable for the average American. The Air Camper is a strut-braced parasol monoplane. It is constructed entirely from spruce and plywood. Pietenpol ingeniously utilized a heavy water-cooled Ford Model A engine. Pumping out 40 horsepower, this cast-iron block was a familiar sight to every rural mechanic. Seeing an air camper in flight is like watching a piece of living history float across the sky. The pilot and passengers sit in tandem, deep within open wooden cockpits. They are surrounded by the mechanical symphony of exposed push rods and the distinct chug of a Ford Model A engine. An engine that sounds like it belongs on a dusty country dirt road. The high-mounted wing provides incredible downward visibility, though the massive automotive radiator perched right in the airflow creates undeniable drag. It was the ultimate rural escape machine of the Great Depression. Bernard Pietenpol's genius was proving to the aviation elite that you did not need an expensive aircraft engine to fly safely. He famously flew his heavy air camper to a major aviation convention just to silence the wealthy skeptics who laughed at his automotive engine. Decades later, thousands of these wooden marvels are still lovingly built by purists, builders who crave authentic, oil-stained aviation. It is a brilliant piece of old-school ingenuity. However, if flying a heavy Ford engine strapped to spruce sounds sketchy, the next aircraft takes danger to a terrifying extreme. Taking the number 8 spot is a machine that stripped aviation down to its most terrifyingly bare essentials, the DFS SG-38 Schulglider. Designed in Germany in 1938, this primary glider was mass-produced to train thousands of amateur pilots. Unlike conventional aircraft, the SG-38 has absolutely no engine, 0 horsepower, and a payload capacity limited precisely to the weight of one single, terrified student pilot. Built from ash wood, steel tubes, and fabric-covered wings spanning 34 feet, it was an unpowered, ultra-lightweight sled meant solely to teach basic flight control. The visual design of the SG-38 is nothing short of a flying skeleton. There is no fuselage, no enclosed cockpit, and absolutely 0 crash protection. The pilot is literally strapped to an open wooden plank perched out in front of the main wing, with their legs dangling over the edge. Launched from a hillside via a massive rubber bungee cord pulled by a team of men, the glider gets yanked into the air violently. The sensory experience is pure, unadulterated wind noise and the terrifying creak of flexing wooden spars. This aircraft holds the mind-blowing record of being one of the most widely produced gliders in history, with over 10,000 units built. Imagine being a teenager in the late 30s. You are told to sit on an exposed wooden beam and then slingshot it off a mountain by your friends. It was the ultimate extreme sport of its era, demanding absolute nerves of steel before pilots moved to real motorized aircraft. But while this glider lacked an engine entirely, the next entry threw common sense away and landed a wooden boat on water. At number 7, we dive into the bizarre world of amateur amphibious aviation with the Vollmer VJ-22 Sportsman. Designed in 1958 by American aeronautical engineer Vollmer Jensen, this home-built flying boat is a fascinating mashup. It combines salvaged aircraft parts and do-it-yourself boat-building techniques. Jensen drafted plans that utilized commercially produced wings and tail surfaces from classic Piper Cub aircraft. The beating heart of this oddball is typically an 85 to 100 horsepower Continental engine. It is cleverly mounted high on a pylon above the wing to keep the propeller dry. Looking at the VJ-22, it visually resembles a small, beautifully crafted mahogany speedboat that somehow miraculously sprouted wings. The hull is constructed from marine plywood covered in fiberglass, giving it a nostalgic, nautical aesthetic. When it lands on a pristine lake, the loud roar of the top-mounted pusher propeller echoes across the water. This is followed by the satisfying, heavy splash of the wooden hull slicing through the waves. Inside the cramped, enclosed cabin, the pilot has to simultaneously manage both aviation flight controls and a retractable water rudder. What makes the Sportsman truly incredible is that over 100 of these home-built flying boats were successfully completed by amateur builders in their own garages. Jensen sold over 1,000 sets of plans. He proved you did not need a multi-million-dollar factory to conquer both the sky and the sea. It represents a golden age of mechanical cross-pollination, a time where rugged outdoorsmen built fishing boats that could cruise at 90 miles per hour. But, as strange as a flying wooden speedboat is, our next wire-braced Pioneer machine is incredibly fragile. Stepping back to the absolute dawn of flight, number 6 is the iconic, fragile, and utterly daring Blériot Epen. First taking to the skies in 1909, this pioneering French monoplane laid the groundwork for almost every aircraft that followed. Powered by an unbelievably crude 25-horsepower Anzani 3-cylinder fan engine, this machine had a wingspan of 25 feet and weighed roughly 500 pounds. It utilized a tractor configuration with the engine up front. It featured a wooden framework held together by tension piano wires and a revolutionary wing warping control system. The Blériot Epen looks less like a vehicle and more like a massive, intricate kite made of bicycle wheels, linen, and string. Seeing it fly is a nerve-wracking experience. The castor oil lubricated engine spews a thick blue, terrible-smelling smoke directly into the pilot's face. Meanwhile, the entire wire brace structure visibly flexes and wobbles in the breeze. The pilot sits completely exposed in a shallow wooden basket. They are gripping a steering column that required intense muscular effort to physically warp the wings. It completely redefined what was mechanically possible at the turn of the century. The Blériot Epen achieved legendary status when Louis Blériot did the unthinkable. He flew it across the English Channel. Without a compass, flying through heavy fog and relying on a notoriously unreliable engine that was famously cooled by a rainstorm halfway across. His survival was a testament to raw pioneer grit. It proved that human courage could overcome the terrifying limitations of early mechanics. But if you think wing warping and piano wire are a crazy way to fly, wait until you see the completely stripped-down metal minimalism of our next contender. Before we cross into the top 5 weirdest flying machines in history, I have to ask, would you dare strap into an exposed wooden glider or trust your life to a 1930s Ford engine? If you love these deep dives into old-school mechanical craftsmanship, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell. It really helps YouTube show this video to more hardcore gearheads like us, and you will not miss our next mechanical breakdown. Now let us get back to the madness. Crashing into the number 5 spot is a deeply obscure yet wildly fascinating piece of experimental aviation known as the Snedden M7. Built strictly under the FAA's Part 103 ultralight regulations in the United States, this machine represents the absolute extreme of minimalist flying. To legally qualify, it must weigh less than 254 pounds empty, it must carry only a single occupant, and have a top speed restricted to just 55 knots. The M7 utilizes a tiny, low-horsepower engine, completely stripping away any excess weight to stay airborne. Visually, the Snedden M7 looks less like a proper airplane and more like a motorized flying clothesline. It is essentially an open-air skeleton of thin aluminum and steel tubing. It features a highly exposed cockpit where the pilot sits completely out in the open, gripping a simple control stick. The wheels are fixed to a spindly undercarriage, and every control cable, strut, and hinge is visibly exposed to the rushing wind. When it flies, the entire structure twitches and jerks in the air currents, offering a terrifyingly raw sensory experience. The allure of the Snedden M7 lies in its radical dedication to accessibility and pure, unadulterated danger. It was built for the maverick who wanted to fly without the need for an expensive pilot's license. It utilized steerable front wheels and a terrifyingly simple control system. Imagine strapping yourself into a flying lawn chair made of metal tubes, completely exposed to the elements, and trusting it thousands of feet in the air. But while the M7 is a minimalist masterpiece, The next machine possessed a hidden, deadly aerodynamic flaw. Landing at number 4 is one of the most infamous amateur aircraft ever conceived, the Mignet HM-293, widely known by its terrifyingly accurate nickname, the Flying Flea. Designed in the 1930s by French radio engineer Henri Mignet, this bizarre machine was supposed to be the Model T of the air. Mignet completely eliminated the traditional tail elevator and ailerons. Instead, the aircraft featured a bizarre tandem wing layout, powered by a tiny motorcycle engine producing around 30 horsepower. The pilot controlled altitude by physically pivoting the entire main front wing. The visual presence of the Flying Flea is delightfully absurd. It looks like a tiny squat wooden insect with 2 wings stacked awkwardly close together. In flight, it buzzes loudly like an angry hornet, cruising at a sluggish 60 miles per hour. Mignet designed it to be inherently stable and supposedly impossible to stall. This made it deeply appealing to working-class enthusiasts who desperately wanted to fly. Builders across the world rushed to buy the book, gluing together these tiny wooden contraptions in basements, dreaming of taking to the skies. But the Flying Flea hid a deadly aerodynamic secret. As amateur pilots built and flew them, a terrifying pattern emerged. If the aircraft entered a shallow dive, the airflow between the 2 wings would compress, creating an uncontrollable aerodynamic lock. No matter how hard the pilot pulled back on the stick, the nose would drop further, leading to a fatal crash. It was a brutal reminder of the extreme dangers of amateur aeronautics. Now, if you think a tiny wooden insect is crazy, our top 3 enters the realm of heavy metal military oddities. Breaking into our top 3 is a machine that looks more like a flying Victorian bridge than an airplane, the massive Caproni Ca.3. Designed in Italy during World War I by Giovanni Battista Caproni, this heavy bomber was an absolute titan of early military engineering. Entering service in 1915, it boasted a gigantic wingspan of 74 feet and weighed over 7,200 pounds fully loaded. It utilized 3 massive water-cooled engines, generating a combined 450 horsepower of deafening, ear-shattering thrust. The Caproni is a chaotic visual nightmare of struts, twin tail booms, and canvas. The most insane feature is the forward gunner's position. The front gunner was forced to stand completely exposed in a tiny metal cage. This cage was bolted to the very front tip of the central nacelle, hanging perilously over the earth with nothing but empty air beneath his boots. The noise inside this aircraft was catastrophic. 3 massive engines roaring in unison, cold wind blasting through the open framework, and the heavy smell of hot oil and gunpowder. Flying the Caproni was a brutal test of endurance. Pilots had to muscle massive, heavy control wheels just to keep the gigantic kite flying straight. The sight of this massive, triple-engined beast lumbering across the sky must have looked like an alien dreadnought to the soldiers in the trenches below. It represents a time when aerospace engineering was based on raw, brute force scaling. However, while the Caproni was a giant of the First World War, the machine at number 2 is a Cold War relic that redefined the helicopter. Claiming the number 2 spot is a bizarre marvel of Soviet engineering that looks like a flying mechanic's toolbox, the Kamov Ka-26. Introduced in 1969, this light twin-engine, multi-role helicopter threw conventional design rules out the window. Unlike traditional helicopters, the K-26 has no tail rotor. Instead, it utilizes a coaxial rotor system with 2 massive rotors stacked on top of each other. Powering this beast are 2 colossal 325 horsepower radial piston engines. They are strapped awkwardly to the sides of the cabin like oversized muscular shoulders. Visually, the K-26 is jarringly utilitarian. It essentially consists of a bubble cockpit, 2 massive side-mounted radial engines, and a strange, empty void directly behind the pilot. That void is its genius feature. The helicopter is modular. Ground crews could bolt different payloads into the empty space: a chemical hopper for crop dusting, a passenger pod, or a cargo flatbed. The sound of those massive 9-cylinder engines firing up is a violent mechanical thunderclap that shakes the ground. Meanwhile, the coaxial rotors chop the air with a heavy rhythmic thrum. The K-26 holds the incredible distinction of being the only helicopter in the world equipped with piston engines to operate successfully in commercial service for decades. Pilots loved it because the lack of a tail rotor made it incredibly stable in heavy crosswinds. It is a masterpiece of old-school heavy metal Soviet engineering, valuing raw lifting power over sleek aesthetics. But if you think a modular twin-engine coaxial flying tractor is the strangest thing in the sky, brace yourself. Our number one spot is visually offensive and became a Hollywood star. Taking the crown as the most bizarre, extreme, and unbelievable flying machine on our list is the Transavia PL-12 air truck. Designed in Australia in 1965 by Luigi Pellegrini, this aircraft was purpose-built for the incredibly dangerous job of crop dusting in the rugged Australian outback. The air truck is powered by a massive 300-horsepower Continental flat-six engine. But its layout is truly radical. It was built entirely around a massive 1-ton chemical hopper, placing the payload directly on the center of gravity. This resulted in a design that aggressively defies aerodynamics. The air truck looks like a mechanical monster that escaped from a post-apocalyptic junkyard. The engine and cockpit are perched bizarrely high above the fuselage, making it look incredibly top-heavy. Behind the massive engine, the aircraft splits into an asymmetrical twin-tail boom configuration, leaving a gaping hole in the back. Amazingly, beneath the pilot's lofty perch, there's a tiny cramped passenger cabin built into the rear of the fuselage. When this beast roars low over a field, dodging power lines at 100 miles per hour, it looks like an angry mechanical gargoyle. The air truck's bizarre, aggressive design was so visually striking that it famously caught the eye of Hollywood directors. It became the iconic, rusted flying machine piloted by Jedediah in the legendary 1985 film Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. For the 50-plus crowd, seeing this beast on screen etched it into pop culture history forever. Yet beneath its horrific looks lay an incredibly sturdy agricultural workhorse designed to protect the pilot in a crash. The air truck proves that in heavy machinery, function always dictates form, even if that form looks absolutely insane. These machines are not just historical oddities. They represent the raw, unfiltered courage of engineers who refuse to accept the status quo. They prove that in the world of mechanics, if a crazy idea solves a real problem, it is never stupid. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these machines did you find the absolute strangest? If you could see just one of these bizarre aircraft in person, which would it be? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. See you next time. What if I told you that building a fully functional, unlicensed aircraft in your garage isn't a crime, it's a loophole? Forget everything you know about million-dollar aerospace companies. Today, we are counting down 10 mind-blowing, completely amateur-built aircraft. These machines defy the laws of gravity and the FAA. From flying lawn chairs to our number one spot, a homemade aircraft that looks exactly like a classified military stealth fighter escaping Area 51. You absolutely need to see the last one to believe it. Now, if you love wild aviation history and DIY engineering pushed to the extreme, hit that subscribe button now and let's get into the hangar. Kicking off our list at number 10 is the Zigolo MG-12, a design born in Italy that completely redefines what it means to fly on a tight budget. This is the ultimate expression of minimalist aviation. It looks less like a traditional aircraft and more like a flying lawn chair, strapped to a set of high-lift wings. But do not let its fragile appearance fool you. This machine is engineered precisely to fit within the incredibly strict FAA Part 103 ultralight regulations in the United States. Because it falls under that magical Part 103 rule, you do not need a pilot's license, an aircraft registration, or a medical certificate to legally fly it. To make that happen, the engineers had to strip away absolutely everything. that was not strictly necessary for flight. The result is a fully functional aircraft. When completely empty, it weighs strictly under 254 pounds. That means this entire flying machine weighs significantly less than a standard side-by-side refrigerator sitting right now in your own home kitchen. Out in the real world, the Zigolo is used purely for the joy of low and slow cruising. It allows you to soar over local fields and lakes with nothing but the open air surrounding you. It is the closest thing to strapping on a pair of wings and jumping off a hill. It offers a pure, unfiltered flying experience. However, if soaring in a flying lawn chair sounds a bit too sketchy for your taste, wait until you see the vintage World War I replica built right in a modern backyard. At number 9, we step back in time with the Airdrome Dream Classic, a beautiful replica that brings the golden age of aviation directly to your local grass strip. This is not a factory-built relic imported from an expensive museum. It is a true underdog story waiting to happen right in your backyard. Designed specifically for the everyday guy who wants to experience the magic of early flight, the Dream Classic relies heavily on fundamental old-school building techniques. Yet it combines seamlessly with modern, highly reliable aviation-grade materials and structural hardware. Instead of using expensive, hard-to-work-with composites, this nostalgic biplane is built using heavy-duty aluminum and chromoly tubing. They are held together firmly with thousands of pulled rivets and structural gussets. It is the exact kind of project where you can smell the cutting fluid and hear the air compressor running late into the night. It embodies pure hangar talk. It brings together weekend mechanics who rivet their way to the sky, thereby proving definitively that you do not need $1 million aviation factory to build a solid, incredibly safe and reliable airframe. Once completed, the open-air aesthetic delivers a breathtakingly nostalgic flying experience, a feeling that modern enclosed cabins simply cannot match. It is used heavily for recreational Sunday flying. It offers everyday pilots that classic scarf in the wind feeling, something pioneer aviators lived in. Bush motor glider that looks exactly like a highly polished raindrop slicing smoothly through the sky. Unlike our previous rugged tube and fabric builds, the ELF is an absolute masterclass in aerodynamic efficiency and sleek, incredibly futuristic design. It completely ditches the drag-heavy external struts and bracing wires. In exchange, it features a perfectly smooth carbon composite pod and boom fuselage. It truly looks like it belongs in the year 2050 rather than today. The primary aerodynamic secret behind the ELF is its incredibly clean, cantilevered high wing, a design that generates massive amounts of lift with almost zero parasitic drag. Because of this remarkably slippery design, it requires very little horsepower to stay aloft, relying entirely instead on its impressive glide ratio. Once the small engine gets you up to altitude, you can pull the throttle all the way back. The ELF will ride the thermal updrafts just like a hawk, turning a few gallons of fuel into several hours of soaring flight. In practical use, this magnificent machine is perfect for quiet cross-country soaring and high-altitude sightseeing. It offers a truly magical, almost silent ride far above the clouds. It is known as a gentleman's flying machine, refined, stable, and elegant in absolutely every single aerodynamic maneuver. But if pure gliders are a bit too graceful for your personal taste, and you desperately want a rugged bush plane for the exact price of a used pickup truck, you better keep your eyes peeled for aircraft number 7 on this incredible list. Taking the 7th spot is the Skyreach Bushcat, a robust, absolutely no-nonsense utility aircraft born directly in the harsh, highly unforgiving environments of South Africa. This rugged airplane was designed with one primary, uncompromising goal, that is to survive the brutal African bush and keep its pilot completely safe. It is certainly not trying to win a fancy beauty contest. It is a highly durable mechanical tool built specifically to take an absolute beating. It operates on dirt strips and uneven terrain, where most standard airplanes would instantly snap their fragile landing gear. What makes the Bushcat a massive favorite among American amateur builders is its genuinely insane price-to-fun ratio, You can order a complete kit and put it together inside your garage using basic hand tools and have a brand new backcountry capable airplane for significantly less than the cost of a used Ford F-150. Covered tightly in a durable specialized Dacron fabric that literally zips and laces securely onto the strong tubular metal frame. It is incredibly easy to repair if you happen to scrape a wingtip on a thorny bush. Out in the wild, the bushcat is heavily utilized for serious anti-poaching patrols, dangerous wildlife spotting, and remote off-grid camping trips. It proves its daily worth as a true, reliable working machine. It is undoubtedly the ultimate affordable off-roader of the skies, always ready for any unexpected adventure. That rugged capability is perfect for the deep wilderness. However, our next experimental aircraft has a design so wonderfully weird and totally bizarre, it barely looks like it should ever generate enough aerodynamic lift to actually get off the ground safely. Sliding smoothly into number 6 is the Earthstar Thundergull, a true oddball of the American kit plane scene that completely challenges traditional aircraft silhouettes. With its strange teardrop pod-like fuselage and a completely cantilevered high wing, it looks a bit like a flying submarine hovering gently over the runway. But behind that highly unconventional appearance lies a deeply thought-out engineering philosophy. It is focused entirely on maximizing structural integrity, ensuring incredible aerodynamic stability, and providing the pilot with unobstructed visibility. An absolutely unparalleled view in nearly every single direction during standard flight operations. For those older experienced builders who prioritize survival and safety above absolutely all else, the Thundergull delivers total peace of mind. It directly addresses the classic concern of what happens if the engine quits by being fully compatible with a BRS ballistic recovery system parachute. Look at this. If things go completely wrong mid-air, you can firmly pull a handle. A solid fuel rocket aggressively fires a massive parachute out the back. Instantly, the entire airplane floats safely and gently down to the solid ground, keeping you completely securely strapped into your reinforced pilot seat. Thanks to its highly aerodynamic shape and extremely reliable power plants, the Thundergull is fantastic for cross-country cruising. Remarkably safe, highly efficient, on a very tight personal budget. It is the most sensible, highly secure choice for the prudent aviator who desperately wants great visibility and ultimate safety. While the Gull focuses heavily on safe, quiet efficiency, the very next incredible plane on our list brings the raw roar, the burning oil, and the howling wind of aviation's legendary golden age directly to your own local hometown airport. Now, if you are loving these incredible engineering marvels, please hit that like and subscribe button right now. It seriously helps YouTube show this video to more aviation fanatics just like you. At number 5, we have the Early Bird Jenny, a meticulously scaled-down, phenomenal replica of the legendary Curtiss JN-4, the exact historical plane that practically birthed American civil aviation. Building and flying one of these amazing machines is an absolute assault on the senses in the best way possible. It is absolutely not about getting from point A to point B quickly. It is entirely about experiencing the raw, visceral thrill of early pioneer flight. Exactly how it truly felt for brave pilots over a full century ago. When you fire up the vintage engine on this bird, you do not just hear it. You feel it rattling deep inside your chest. You instantly smell the rich, intoxicating scent of aviation fuel and hot engine exhaust. You feel the intense, rhythmic vibration of the massive wooden propeller. And when you finally take off, the wind howls fiercely through the external rigging wires like a wild musical instrument. It is a brilliant sensory overload that connects you directly to the legendary, fearless barnstormers of the roaring 1920s. Today, these incredibly beautiful open cockpit biplanes are used primarily for thrilling weekend barnstorming, turning countless heads at local grass strip fly-ins and giving everyday amateur pilots a thrilling taste of pure historical nostalgia. It is quite literally a fully functioning flying time machine built right in a standard modern storage shed. Nostalgia is truly great. Yet if you absolutely want sleek, modern aluminum engineering straight out of the heart of Europe, you really need to see the incredible technological marvel that takes our number 4 spot on this list. Grabbing the highly coveted 4th spot is the Dar Solo, a stunning masterpiece of modern European minimalist engineering coming straight out of Bulgaria. This brilliant single-seat aircraft takes a completely different approach to the amateur-built category. It completely steps away from traditional fabric and tubes to fully embrace the clean, highly precise world of aerospace sheet metal construction. With its sleek lines, it looks exactly like it was designed by a high-end exotic sports car manufacturer, rather than a regular guy working tirelessly in a dusty, dimly lit suburban garage. This is exactly where the true mechanical hangar talk really shines brightly. The Solo is meticulously built using high-grade aviation aluminum ribs and main spars. They are precision-drilled and solidly riveted together to create an incredibly rigid, remarkably lightweight structure. Paired closely with a highly reliable aviation engine, it offers a distinct level of structural refinement and modern safety that you usually only ever find in expensive factory-built certified aircraft, all while remaining surprisingly simple enough for a dedicated first-time builder to assemble confidently at home without needing specialized commercial equipment. Because of its brilliantly designed, easily removable wings, it is undoubtedly the ultimate weekend warrior machine. You can safely trailer it to the local airport, comfortably assemble it in just 15 minutes completely by yourself, and be soaring high in the air before your morning cup of coffee even gets cold. The Solo is a truly amazing single-seater, but what if you desperately want to take your best buddy deep into the harsh, untamed backcountry? Well, our top 3 aircraft are about to completely blow your mind today. Powering aggressively into the top 3 is the RANS S-21 Outbound, a magnificent all-metal, proudly American-made beast that is practically synonymous with extreme backcountry flying. This is absolutely not a delicate weekend cruiser. It is a heavy-duty aerial off-roader designed specifically to conquer the absolute harshest natural environments imaginable. With its massive, oversized tundra bush tires and incredibly robust, shock-absorbing landing gear, it literally looks exactly like a flying monster truck. Totally ready and eager to take on the most unforgiving, brutal wilderness landscapes on the planet. The S-21 is totally legendary for its extreme short takeoff and landing STOL capabilities. You genuinely can feel the sheer brute mechanical force violently pushing you back deep into your seat as it literally leaps off the dirt ground in just a few hundred feet of runway. Whether it is the deafening roar of a high-horsepower Titan engine or the highly aggressive aerodynamic bite of its massive constant-speed propeller, absolutely every sensory detail of the Outbound loudly screams rugged performance, unmatched durability, and raw, completely unadulterated horsepower. Fearless bush pilots completely rely on the S-21 to access incredibly remote, highly isolated locations, routinely landing safely on completely dry, rocky riverbeds, steep mountain slopes, and remarkably tiny, unpaved clearings hidden deep in the dense forest. It is an absolute backcountry beast that truly thrives where there are absolutely no paved roads. But the next incredible aircraft is the undisputed reigning king of the do-it-yourself sky, boasting performance numbers that easily rival and frequently beat expensive multi-million-dollar factory planes straight off the professional commercial assembly line. Sitting proudly at number 2 is the Vans RV-9A, the completely undisputed king of the American kit plane world and the absolute gold standard of amateur aircraft building. Vans Aircraft has produced so many highly successful kits, so much so that their home-built planes actually easily outnumber many certified factory models registered across the entire country today. The RV-9A is highly revered globally because it perfectly balances gentle, stall-resistant handling with blistering, high-speed cross-country performance, ultimately making it the absolute best, most capable all-around aircraft for the average everyday pilot. The brilliant secret to its total market dominance lies deeply in its perfectly engineered airfoil. along with the ultra-smooth, flush-riveted aluminum skin, which completely eliminates nearly all unnecessary aerodynamic drag. This stunning aerodynamic perfection reliably yields an unbelievable cost versus value ratio. The RV9A can comfortably cruise at nearly 200 miles per hour while burning just a tiny fraction of the fuel of a traditional Cessna, thereby allowing smart builders to fly rapidly across the entire country on a very reasonable, highly affordable working man's aviation budget. With its incredibly spacious and highly comfortable side-by-side seating arrangement, it is easily the perfect machine for long-distance scenic touring and exciting weekend getaways with a lucky spouse or a close flying friend. It is by absolutely all practical measures the perfect kit plane for the everyday pilot who wants incredible speed and total reliability. The RV9A is practically perfect, but if you want something so extreme it looks exactly like it belongs hidden on a highly classified military base, tightly brace yourself for our #1 spot. Claiming the highly anticipated #1 spot is the absolute ultimate climax of garage engineering, the Archon SF-1. Brilliantly designed in Greece by aeronautical engineer Georgos Iliopoulos, this astonishing aircraft completely defies all standard logic and normal expectation. At first casual glance, you would confidently swear you are looking directly at a highly classified multi-million-dollar stealth fighter jet that just secretly rolled straight out of Area 51. With its aggressively angled nose, large bubble canopy, and massive faux intakes, it projects an intimidating aura of extreme supersonic danger. However, this is exactly where the crazy index hits its absolute peak. Beneath that highly menacing, aggressive fighter profile skin, it is actually a highly forgiving, incredibly stable ultralight class aircraft. It is made primarily of standard aviation-grade aluminum. It uses incredibly clever visual illusions to look incredibly heavy and violently fast, but actually it is powered by a relatively small, extremely safe, and highly reliable engine. The stunning juxtaposition of sitting securely in what feels exactly like an F-117 Nighthawk while flying safely at standard ultralight speeds is totally mind-blowing. This incredible technical illusion completely blows the minds of stunned onlookers at absolutely every single local airport it ever visits. The Archon SF-1 is the absolute ultimate, undeniable proof that standard garage engineering truly has absolutely no limits whatsoever. It wonderfully allows a regular guy with a basic set of hand tools and plenty of patience to actually build his own personal fighter jet and confidently command the open sky, making the ultimate childhood military aviation dream a stunning, highly accessible, and totally undeniable everyday flying reality. These machines are not just toys or weekend projects. They represent pure human ingenuity and real, tangible solutions to the age-old dream of flight. They prove that the absolute freedom of the vast American sky belongs to anyone with enough pure grit and a good set of metal tools. Now, which of these experimental planes did you personally find the strangest? Which one would you actually want to build in your own home garage? Is there a crazy home-built aircraft I totally missed? Let me know directly in the comments below, and please do not forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell icon. Every single week there is a brand new video diving deep into the fascinating world of extreme mechanical machinery. Have you ever imagined stepping into a flying machine built in someone's backyard, a contraption that looks more like a winged lawnmower than an actual aircraft? Under FAA Part 103, qualifying ultralight machines can operate under a remarkably different set of rules from conventional airplanes. Open cockpits, stripped-down construction, and designs that look almost impossible to trust. Today we're counting down 10 of the most unbelievable amateur-built and ultralight aircraft ever to take to the sky. Are these the ultimate expression of engineering freedom or flying machines that push simplicity almost too far? Stay with us until number 1, because the final machine adds jet power to a design so radical, it looks like a creature that escaped from a science fiction movie. Let us kick things off at number 10 with the Tipsy Nipper. Born in Belgium in the late 1950s, this incredibly compact aircraft was designed with one specific goal: to make flying accessible to the average guy with a toolbox and a dream. Originally powered by a modified Volkswagen Beetle engine, the Nipper is a masterclass in grassroots engineering. It was sold in kits, meaning thousands of aviation enthusiasts turned their dusty garages into miniature aircraft factories, piecing together the welded steel tube fuselage and wooden wings on their weekends. Visually, the Tipsy Nipper looks like a child's oversized toy. It is so stubby and short that you might mistake it for a pedal car with wings. However, do not let its comical scale fool you. The pilot sits in a tiny enclosed bubble canopy, practically wearing the airplane rather than sitting inside it. Yet, when that little Volkswagen engine roars to life, this tiny machine transforms into a highly capable aerobatic performer. It can perform loops, rolls, and spins with the agility of a fighter jet, giving everyday builders a thrill. The most fascinating part of the Nipper's legacy is how it created a massive cult following of backyard mechanics. People who continuously upgrade its engine and avionics to this very day. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that you do not need a massive budget or a corporate factory to touch the clouds. But if you think a flying toy is crazy, wait until you see the muscular skeleton of a helicopter that costs less than a used sports car. Number 9 will completely blow your mind with its exposed mechanics. Coming in at number 9 is the Schweitzer 300C. While originally designed by Hughes and used for professional training, this machine has become the absolute holy grail for private backyard mechanics and amateur rebuilders. This is not a luxury chopper with plush leather seats and air conditioning. This is a pure, unadulterated mechanical beast. Powered by a Lycoming 4-cylinder engine, pushing out exactly 190 horsepower, this machine relies on raw, exposed engineering to keep you from falling right out of the sky on a windy afternoon. Looking at the 300C is exactly like looking at an anatomical chart of a helicopter. It features a massive bubble canopy up front. But behind the pilot, there is no bodywork whatsoever. It is just a complex web of exposed tubular steel, a massive drive belt, and a screaming engine completely open to the elements. For the gearhead, this is absolute paradise. You can see every linkage, every bolt, and every moving part operating in real time. It is the ultimate expression of mechanical transparency, where hiding the mechanics is a sin. Because of its rugged simplicity, the 300C is highly prized by amateur pilots who want to wrench on their own machines. Instead of paying millions for a corporate helicopter, you can find rebuilt models for the price of a high-end sports car. It is a blue-collar chopper for guys who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty with aviation grease. That raw mechanical chopper is cool, but our next aircraft is so unbelievably light, you will wonder how a strong gust of wind doesn't just blow it completely away. Number 8 is the Aviaircraft Swan 120. Hailing from Romania, this machine falls strictly under the Federal Aviation Administration Part 103 ultralight category, which is essentially the Wild West of aviation. Under these rules, you do not even need a pilot's license to fly it, provided the aircraft meets strict weight limits. To achieve this, the engineers built the Swan 120 almost entirely out of advanced composite materials. It is a single-seat, high-wing monoplane that pushes the absolute boundaries of weight reduction and structural minimalism to the extreme. When you stand next to the Swan 120, the scale of it is deeply unsettling. It weighs roughly 253 pounds empty. To put that into perspective, this flying machine weighs less than a standard Harley-Davidson motorcycle. The wings look impossibly thin, and the fuselage is so narrow it feels like stepping into a sleek flying kayak. The cockpit is entirely open, exposing the pilot to the rushing wind and the terrifying reality. You are suspended in the atmosphere in a machine lighter than a heavy-duty kitchen refrigerator. Despite its fragile appearance, the structural integrity of the composite shell is remarkably strong, capable of handling the stresses of flight with surprising grace. It is used primarily for pure recreational weekend flying, allowing the pilot to cruise low and slow over the countryside without worrying about heavy regulations. The Swan is fragile, sure, but the next machine on our list is so unbelievably tiny you do not even sit inside it. You literally have to wear it like a backpack before you take to the terrifying open skies above. Taking the number 7 spot is the legendary Homebuilt. Created by Maury Hummel, this is one of the most famous plans-built aircraft in American history. When we talk about backyard aviation, this is the gold standard. It is constructed entirely from sheet metal, requiring the builder to rivet every single piece together by hand in their garage. Powered by a modified half-Volkswagen engine, this 2-cylinder powerhouse produces just enough thrust to get this incredible piece of handcrafted aluminum off the ground and safely into the bright blue yonder. The overall size of the Homebuilt is simply comical until you realize how dangerous it really is. It is so incredibly small that you could easily roll it into the bed of a standard Ford F-150 pickup truck with plenty of room to spare. The cockpit is painfully tight. You do not climb into a Homebuilt, you strap it to your back. The canopy rests just inches from the pilot's forehead, making claustrophobia a very real issue before your wheels even leave the safety of the neighborhood tarmac. The true genius of this machine lies in its unbelievable affordability. A dedicated hobbyist can build a Homebuilt for just a few $1,000s, sourcing metal and engine parts from local hardware stores and scrapyards. It democratized flight for the working-class mechanic who just wanted to fly. Metal is one thing, but what if I told you the next engineering marvel was built in a shed entirely out of wood? Prepare yourself, because this next aircraft takes backyard carpentry to an entirely new and highly dangerous level of extreme speed. Number 6 is the SpaceX SD-1 Minisport. Designed in the Czech Republic by Igor Spacek, this aircraft is a stunning tribute to old-school craftsmanship. In an era dominated by carbon fiber and aerospace alloys, the SD-1 goes back to basics. It is constructed primarily from plywood and spruce. This means that a guy with advanced carpentry skills can effectively build a high-performance aircraft in his garage. Using standard woodworking tools that you would normally use to build a cabinet or a dining room table for your house. Aesthetically, the SD-1 is a complete masterpiece. It features sleek aerodynamic lines that make it look like a miniature World War II fighter plane. But beneath that beautiful painted surface is a complex wooden skeleton. Depending on the builder, it can be powered by engines ranging from 24 to 50 horsepower, including converted industrial V-twin engines originally meant for heavy equipment. The fuel efficiency is staggering, sipping mere drops of fuel while cruising at over 100 miles per hour through the clear, open daytime skies. The SD-1 proves that you do not need military-grade technology to conquer the skies. A master carpenter can do it just as well. It takes the everyman hero concept and turns it into a high-speed reality that anyone can appreciate. This wooden wonder proves anyone can build a plane. But before I show you a futuristic helicopter that looks like a 1980s space pod, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because things are about to get really weird, and it helps YouTube show this madness to more people. Alright, we are back, and at number 5 is the Dynally H3 Easy Flyer. Built in Belgium, this is a 2-seat microlight helicopter that aims to make rotary flight accessible to the private owner. Powered by a highly reliable Rotax 912 engine, this chopper features an oversized carbon fiber and Kevlar body mounted onto a minimalist stainless steel frame. It is an extraordinary blend of high-tech aerospace materials and backyard mechanical ingenuity, bringing professional-level aviation directly into the hands of the everyday, passionate heavy machinery enthusiast. Visually, the Easy Flyer triggers an immediate sense of wild nostalgia. The massive bulging front canopy and side-by-side seating arrangement make it look exactly like a futuristic vehicle from a 1980s sci-fi movie. It has a slightly disproportionate look, with bug-eyed features and a surprisingly spacious cabin sitting on top of incredibly thin landing skids. It looks like it should be patrolling a dystopian neon-lit city rather than cruising gently over a quiet rural American farm on a Sunday afternoon, searching for a place to touch down and grab a quick bite. Because it falls into the microlight category, it is significantly cheaper to operate and maintain than traditional helicopters, making it a favorite for flight schools and wealthy hobbyists who want to bypass heavy Federal Aviation Administration regulations. The Easy Flyer gives you a nice cabin, but the next aircraft strips all that away, giving you transparent wings and absolutely zero protection from the elements. If you're afraid of heights, you might want to look away, because this next machine will test the absolute limits of your courage and your sanity. Screaming in at number 4 is the Ultraflight Laser. Hailing from Canada, this twin-engine ultralight aircraft is widely considered one of the best-designed light planes in aviation history. However, its design is profoundly nerve-wracking. It uses an inverted V-tail and is powered by 2 incredibly small two-stroke engines mounted directly onto the wings. The sound these engines make is unmistakable. It sounds exactly like 2 angry chainsaws ripping through the sky, echoing across the landscape and terrifying every single bird within a 5-mile radius of your completely exposed cockpit. The most terrifying and mesmerizing feature of the Laser is its wings. The aluminum frame is covered entirely in transparent mylar film, the exact same thin material used to make cheap party balloons. When you sit in the open-air pilot seat, you can look straight up through your own wings and see the clouds above you. It creates an extreme sense of vulnerability. You are flying at a couple thousand feet, relying on a material you could easily puncture with a simple ballpoint pen if you accidentally dropped it during your flight. The Laser is the closest a human can get to strapping on a pair of mechanical bird wings. It glides gracefully, but the constant chainsaw buzz and the transparent wings require nerves of absolute steel. Flying with see-through wings takes guts, but it is nothing compared to our next helicopter, a machine which does not even have a body, just a stick, a seat, and a spinning blade of death right above your head. Get ready, because things are about to get incredibly sketchy as we move into the top 3 most dangerous aircraft. Number 3 is the absolute pinnacle of minimalist terror, the Myrocopter SCH-2A. Developed in Slovenia, this is a coaxial ultralight helicopter that redefines the meaning of the word bare bones. A coaxial design means it has 2 main rotors spinning in opposite directions on the exact same mast, eliminating the need for a traditional tail rotor. It is powered by a small but wildly aggressive Fiala 2-stroke engine. But what makes this machine legendary in the aviation community is not what it has, but what it completely lacks. There is no cabin, there are no doors, there is no dashboard. The Myrocopter is essentially just a metal pole with a small racing seat bolted to it, a set of handlebars for steering, and a roaring engine located uncomfortably close to the back of your neck. When you fly this machine, there is absolutely nothing between you and the open sky. If that engine quits, you are dropping like a rock. It is the aerial equivalent of riding a stripped-down dirt bike off a massive cliff and praying for a miracle. Sitting on this flying stick requires a complete disregard for self-preservation. It is the ultimate thrill ride for extreme mechanics who want to feel every vibration and sudden wind gust. Sitting on a flying stick is terrifying. But the next Homebuilt legend is notorious for leaving its passengers dangling their feet directly into the open wind thousands of feet up. We are talking about a machine that looks exactly like scaffolding, built for adrenaline junkies who always laugh in the face of danger. Buckle up, because number 2 is pure, unadulterated madness. Taking the number 2 spot is a machine straight out of an aviation madhouse. The RLU-1 creating massive smiles. It is a roller coaster without the tracks, and one wrong move means